pretty clear that future-ready infrastructure is more than about technology. It's about building better and more livable cities for generations to come. Now, ladies and gentlemen, in our next session, we discover how real estate is evolving to match the needs of hybrid workforce. And for this discussion, please welcome to the stage Kory Thompson, Country Head for the Middle East at IWG, Malak Smejkalova, Senior Director of Cloud Spaces, and of course your moderator, Layan Shkier, Editor and Researcher at Forbes Middle East.
Thank you, Vero, for the introduction. Hello, everyone. I hope you've been enjoying the event as much as we did for the past 2 days. And actually, I know we're reaching the end of it, but I promise you this is going to be a very, very interesting panel. Allow me, before I introduce my panelists, and before we start with the panel, allow me to ask how many of you either own or work for a company that follows either a hybrid work model or works fully remotely? Okay, that's great. Actually, even us at Forbes Middle East, most of the team works remotely from around the world, and yet we were able to put this magical event together. So allow me to introduce my panelists. I have Kory from IWG and Malak from Cloud Spaces, who actually have an amazing experience around the globe in providing workplaces for companies that follow such a model of working. And I would like to start by asking Kory, actually. Kory, can you tell us how has the demand over the past few years for flexible office spaces evolved in the UAE and the Middle East since the rise of hybrid working models?
It's a question that I get asked more than any other question is, has it really made a big difference as much as everyone thinks it has after COVID? And interestingly enough, IWG has been expanding globally since before COVID. The US, Canada, the UK were miles ahead on flexible working, companies using flexible offices for their employees to work from as a hub and spoke. So they didn't need to, Verizon in the US is the biggest example. They shut down offices and they took many offices with us around the US and told their employees you can work from there. That was in 2018 or 19. So after COVID, it just accelerated what was already happening. So, you know, if we look at what we've done in the UAE and the Middle East, we've gone from probably 30 locations, we're now at 150, and by the end of this year, it'll be 200, and we should add another 100 next year as well. So that's just in the Middle East of the explosion, really, of what's happening. And we're a firm believer of every commercial building needs a flexible solution. Malak will say every shopping mall as well needs one, and we actually agree because we've started to do that as well ourselves. But everywhere is now a location. It's not about working from home, it's about working close to home. It's working somewhere that reduces your commute, makes a better work-life balance for you. So our demand has gone up for new locations. Our general demand from companies in Fortune 500 continues to rise every month.
Absolutely. And Malak, you spoke that you've been working around the region in different countries. We talked about that backstage. So can you tell us if we want to compare the traditional workplaces to the workplaces that follow a flexible working model, can you tell us what surprising trends have you observed over the past years when it comes to, if you want to focus on flexible workplaces, and what's driving this shift?
Definitely. If I take you back in time, I mean, Kory as well knows, flexible workspace has been here since the 70s, really. It wasn't that popular, but it was centralized in CBDs. So everyone wanted to have on their business card that address, right? I want to have the address in the CBD, so I would rent a space or a flexible part of that space where I can register my business. Today, as time has evolved, the way that we live our lives, the fast pace, time is of an essence, right? So everyone looks at where they want to work. You make that decision because you want to make sure that it fits into your lifestyle. So this is what we have seen, is that people are choosing the workplace away from the CBDs into spaces that provide them with their lifestyle, with wellness, with you know, a collaborative environment where they can do everything under one roof. So they spend the time there. And this is what we have actually realized when we've opened Cloud Spaces. So Cloud Spaces was one of the first co-working spaces coming into a retail environment. So in the beginning, we had pushback. We had clients going, me having an address in a mall? Doesn't make sense, right? But then eventually, people understood the priorities in their lives, what they need. So yes, location is important, but at the same time, the work environment has to fit within your lifestyle. So it really depends on what you prioritize.
And from your experience, what impact do local regulations and government policies have on when it comes to, you know, design, operation, and the success of these workplaces?
It's instrumental. So if I take you again back 20 years back when I joined and I started in this industry, the business center activity was non-existent. So we would have to go and explain to the government entities about what a business center is really about. Having a space that is less than 200 square feet was unimaginable. So there wasn't that, I would say, like the opportunities for flexible workspaces to be able to set up. Over the time, the government has eased up the licensing processes. So they have played an instrumental role in facilitating several businesses, supporting startups and entrepreneurs. And we've seen that shift, which helped us provide a plug-and-play environment for these entrepreneurs and corporates, and at the same time following, you know, the vision of the government in easing business, making it more flexible and future ready. But definitely there is more to come, and I think there's more that we need to do with the government in order to even enhance it and ease it up more.
What do you think about that, Kory?
Just like Malak was saying there at the end, I think if the governments and the local authorities, not just in the UAE, but everywhere in the region, would come to the operators that already exist to ask for our input on what can make this better for the people to work, make it easier to work, make it easier for the licensing, reduce the carbon footprint, better for the environment, better work-life balance. You know, we're already doing it. You know, we're 29 locations in the UAE and 5 Emirates. We want people to be able to live in Sharjah but have an office in Dubai without being at risk of working illegally because you don't have a license in that emirate. They're allowed to go to Starbucks to work. You can sit all day and have a latte and sit for 4 hours, but you're not allowed to sit in an office in a professional environment without an actual license if it comes from another emirate. So those are the type of things we need to work with the governments, and you know, I open at any time to speak with them, and I'm sure Malak would like to as well, that we can help make this industry better to actually help more people work flexibly and for all those, you know, the value adds of what I mentioned there.
That's actually a very interesting point to mention. And Kory, I want to ask you about IWG and the offerings that you have. How are you adapting these offerings to the changing needs of the clients when it comes to working, you know, flexibly?
So the biggest thing that we're seeing now, and globally and especially now regionally, as Malak touched on as well, is people want to work where they want to work. So, you know, as I was saying earlier, we're 29 locations in the UAE. We'll be 40 by the end of the year. And we're going into areas that we wouldn't normally. We don't need another center downtown. People don't want to drive downtown. People don't want to you know, go to Dafsa at 5 o'clock or drive through Sharjah. But they do want to be out at Sports City. We have a location in Sports City in Dubai, the busiest center that we have, because people out there don't want to drive on Hessa or Sakim. So if anyone's ever done that, you can't imagine what that's like. And the same thing at, you know, in Dubai Marina, I'll use that example. We're in a residential tower. At the base of the residential tower, 80% of the clients we have live in that tower. So they own the business, they are there, their teams will come and meet them there, they'll work from there, close to home, they don't have to do it. Same as Abu Dhabi. The biggest focus we have on Abu Dhabi now is a wider range of locations. We're in Masafa because there was a demand for people in Masafa, but it's, we need to get onto Yas. I don't want to compete too much with Malak, but, we need to get in Yas and Saadiyat Island to give more variety so people have an option where to work from. But it will go back to the legislation and stuff of where people can work. Can you have an office in Masafa, but not have a branch on Saadiyat because that's where people live? These are the things that we need to work with the authorities to fix. But that's really where the trend's going, away from the CBD, working where they want to work. As Malak said perfectly, they're in, Jumeirah Village Circle Mall, Yas Mall, all these great ones. I kind of regret we didn't get into when we were offered them at the time, because I thought, who wants to go to a mall? But interestingly enough, we're going to 3 malls now in Egypt, so.
Yes, exactly. This is where in the beginning, there was the pushback, but then you see the clients and the appetite of working within these environments, and being close to home is very important as well.
And I think both of you touched upon this, but as I mentioned earlier, both of you have worked in this sector in a lot of countries around the world. But if we want to focus on the Middle East, what kind of opportunities and challenges that are unique to the region that you have been observing, and what can we also expect from this over the next 3 to 5 years?
So when you look at the fact that the flex space is anticipated to be growing from 80 million to around 113 million US dollars in the next, by the year 2030, the constant influx of businesses and startups that are actually moving to the country, alongside the government anticipating to reach 1 million SMEs by the year 2030, that potential is transformative. So the opportunity is great, but what also has to come with it is the planning of the offering. You always need to be ahead of the curve. You need to understand what the clients are looking for, what is in it for them. And at the same time, you need to keep ahead of the curve, investing in your technology, to be agile, to be able to adopt to what the businesses are requiring, and at the same time, maintain your profitability. That's from my end.
What do you think, Kory, about that?
I think one thing that we're going to continue to see is the different locations where we see flexible working. Trying to get into residential buildings on the ground floor, having 7,000 or 8,000 square feet. Ideally, we like 10,000 for any developer here. But people in these buildings and next door want somewhere close by to work. They want to be able to walk downstairs. So people can't always work from home. You have distractions at home. You have kids, dogs, cleaning ladies, wives, husbands. People are distracting. You want to get out, but you don't want to get in the car, sit in traffic for 45 minutes, and then show up at work frustrated to be there when you could have walked downstairs to do it. I live on Sheikh Zayed Road. My office with no traffic is 13 minutes. With traffic is 40. I only go to the office 2 days a week. But I'm sitting at a desk in my apartment, not in a professional office. If there was one downstairs, I would do it. I should say there is one across the street, but I do like working from home. I don't have distractions. So it's going to be more of those. I think we're going to see is in more residential, the malls. Malls are the best place because there's free parking. Mall owners like us to be there because it brings people in during the day, when everyone goes at nighttime to use the parking. We're not using parking during the daytime. So it's a great opportunity for the mall owners. But the residential buildings, if they can just accept that retail space on ground floor, is not always going to be great for another Carrefour Express or what's one of the other, or a shisha shop.
Trust me, I can very much relate to this because I live in Sharjah and I would really like one, a workspace in my building. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us. We really look forward to the next projects that both of you are working on. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Right, thank you so much, Kory, Malak, and Layan for that amazing discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, the way we work is indeed changing, and so is the way we build for it. So thank you again for that discussion. Now, ladies and gentlemen, for our last session for the day, we explore the evolving role of cultural spaces in preserving heritage while driving innovation, tourism, and community engagement. And for this discussion, please welcome to the stage Manuel Rabat, the Director of the Louvre Abu Dhabi, Gail Heading, Director of Backley Abu Dhabi, Maysa Kara, Artistic Director at Backley Abu Dhabi, and of course your moderator, Sally Musa, Senior Presenter at Forbes Middle East.
I think you can do better than that. A big round of applause for our amazing panel. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. It is so good to have you for this final session. And really, this is a session that speaks to the soul of our cities. Voices of Culture, Forces of Innovation isn't just a title. It is a reflection of how identity is built, preserved, and projected in a rapidly changing world. Today, cities compete not only on infrastructure and economics, but on culture, on the stories they tell, the experiences that they offer, and the emotional resonance that they create. So in this conversation, we're going to be spotlighting the institutions at the heart of that transformation. And so from the architectural marvel that is the Louvre Abu Dhabi to the award-winning creativity nurtured right here at Berkeley Abu Dhabi, we're going to be exploring how art and culture are not just enriching lives, but actively shaping the future of placemaking, tourism, education, and innovation. Together, we're going to be asking, how do cultural institutions bridge heritage and futurism? And how do they elevate a city from being seen to being felt? To answer these questions and so much more, it is such a privilege to be joined by this incredible panel. Manuel Rabat, the Director of the Louvre Abu Dhabi, Gail Heading, Director of Berkeley Abu Dhabi, and the woman with a breathtaking voice. And if you haven't heard her, you absolutely must. The Artistic Director of Berkeley Abu Dhabi, Maysa Kara. It's so great to have all of you. Wonderful to be joined by each and every one of you. Manuel, if I can start with you. Louvre Abu Dhabi is really unique in so many ways. It is, of course, the first universal museum in the region. And if you don't know what that means, it means that it showcases works from across civilizations, cultures, and time periods under one roof, which is something that is very unique indeed and really reflects humanity's shared stories rather than dividing them by geography, time periods, and religions. And so in the process, the Louvre has really become a global symbol of cultural exchange and diplomacy. So how does it strategically align with the UAE's vision to become a global hub for the creative economy? And what does that mean for the future of cultural leadership in the region and beyond?
Thank you so much, my dear. I will start by saying that I'm deeply honored to be there. Thanks to Forbes Middle East, thanks to you, thanks to One Development as well. Yes, we are the first universal museum of the Arab world, and this is, in a way, an image of, I would say, the capacity of innovation of this capital city, of this fantastic country in the UAE. So when we say we are the first universal museum of the Arab world, it means that we took a concept which was born in the Enlightenment, but we made it relevant for the region, for this place. So we are at the same time at the highest level of museum standard in the world, but we are completely rooted in our territory. And I think this is really where you talk about building the future. I see the title on the screen. This is definitely how we are, let's say, completely pertinent for the energy of what's happening. So an old concept become new and shows this connection. So I'm working for the Department of Culture and Tourism. Louvre Abu Dhabi is part of a series of museums, actually. We are here on Saadiyat Island, but there is something called the Saadiyat Cultural District. Louvre Abu Dhabi opened in 2017. It was this first museum. But you have visited the Layan National Museum, the Natural History Museum, the Guggenheim Abu Dhabi Team Lab, which opened, Team Lab Phenomena, which opened 1 month ago. So you have a constellation of cultural institutions. Berkeley is part of the family. You have all these stories of the world, these stories of knowledge, of curiosity, of history, of projection, of history of art, of history of life, of science, all of them together in one, I would say not small place, but in one connected place where you can know where you are and at the same time reach to the world. So I think this is the energy.
It really is, and it's kind of, it's an amazing experience going through Louvre and seeing that journey come to life. And I feel like it reflects the UAE so perfectly. You have people from 200 nationalities who are here, and it's kind of like you're bringing all those stories together.
Yes, if we zoom inside the Louvre Abu Dhabi and the invention, and I think it's also talking to the metaphor of building, because the Louvre Abu Dhabi, which was made by Jean Nouvel, the fantastic architect, he was inspired by the Medina, the Arabic city, and in a normal museum you have rooms which are connected in a building. In our case, we have small buildings which are actually creating this effect of a fort, of a city, and you walk from one room to the other. And because we're in the 21st century, because the world is completely connected, because we know each other, instead of organizing knowledge by materiality, paintings, statues, drawings, or by civilization, Asian art, Egyptian art, you see that in most of the museums of the world, in the Western world, but in Asia and everywhere. We decided that we would play on the connection. So basically, when you walk through the galleries, it's like a time machine. You walk through 10,000 years of history, and in each room, you see things coming from Asia, from this region, from Africa, from the same period of time, and how they share something. Is it through an anthropological trait, when the world is not that connected, like the Flintstone everywhere, or is it because artists are traveling, artists are moving, changing, exchanging techniques, and so on. So this is a source of inspiration, and I think it's a transformative experience. So walking through 10,000 years of history, you see some of the most beautiful creation of mankind, of humanity, and you can find something that will talk to you, to your identity, whatever religion, whatever place in the world you come from, whatever language you're using, something talking to yourself, but you will see this part of your identity talking to the rest of humanity. And I think this is where we become aspirational.
And it speaks to what this session is about, that everything is interconnected in the most incredible way. Gail, if I can come to you, of course music is more than just performance. It really is a mirror of our evolving identity, as well as a force that shapes it too. And so Berkeley is, of course, legendary. When you talk about the original Berkeley Institute, it's legendary in producing some of the most brilliant musicians and producers in the world, more than 300 Grammy Award winners amongst its alumni. That's not counting Academy Awards, Tony Awards as well, producing legends like Quincy Jones, amongst others. It is truly incredible. So from your perspective, how is Berkeley Abu Dhabi then reshaping the cultural narrative of the city through music? And how does that feed into Abu Dhabi's larger urban and social transformation?
Sure. Well, thank you for that question. I think it's one that merits kind of taking a step back and having a bit of context. When you see cities like Boston or Valencia, where we also have campuses, what you see is that music in those cities is not a luxury. Music is part of the infrastructure. And in many ways, we see that here as well. That manifests itself in a variety of ways. There's the physical infrastructure, obviously. You have to have theaters, you have to have schools. But there's also human infrastructure in some way. And people focus precisely, and people that know Berkeley, they focused on all the Grammys and sort of the reach that the institution has had. Certainly, I mean, we graduate over 400 students, international students that then go to their own cities and countries, and they have their own impact. But I think what people don't really realize is a big part and fundamental part of that work has to do with community building and really integrating into the community in a variety of ways. Whether it's through our involvement in other sectors, it could be tourism, it could be technology, as well as helping reshape the actual cultural fabric of a city. Just as a very quick, simple example, I was fortunate enough to be part of the Valencia campus at its initial stages. And when we arrived in 2012, there was, at the time, one recording studio in town. But Valencia was already a very cultural city and state. There's over 500 symphonic bands in the state. Even with that, there was one recording studio, and most musicians were leaving the city to Barcelona and Madrid. Now, fast forward 10 years later, since Berkeley's presence in the city, several studios have opened, music schools have opened, dozens of producers, engineers, creators, performers have stayed in the city and have made it their home. And to bring it back to your first question is how does that kind of relate to what we're doing here? I think that the government of Abu Dhabi has realized that the creative industries is one of the fastest growing sectors in the world. And they've also realized that music isn't a luxury, right? It has to be part of the infrastructure of a city. And so there's been a lot of investment for the long term. We're still, I think, in an initial stage in many ways, particularly for the music industry. But our job here, very similarly than in these other locations where we've operated, is directly connected with meeting the communities at the level and the need that they may have, and working to build and fortify the fabric of the community to then be able to enrich sort of the bloodline of a city, which essentially is culture. I think too often people don't realize that, again, music, culture is not a luxury. It's the bloodline of cities.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I love that. It's so absolutely true. It's who we are and who we will become as well. Mesa, if I can come to you, every city that hosts a Berkeley campus becomes a magnet for that kind of creative energy, as Gail is talking about it there. Why was Abu Dhabi specifically chosen, and how does the spirit of the city align with Berkeley's global mission to champion artistry and innovation?
Yes, thank you, Sally. It's a pleasure to be here. Well, as you know, Abu Dhabi has a very large, diverse population, and it's deeply rooted in culture and heritage, but also is very future-focused. And we also see a very bold commitment to art, to education, and to innovation. And these are values that Berkeley stands for as well. And these are environments where Berkeley has been thriving all around the world. So our mission here is to develop creative capacities for artists from all around the Minasa region. So our presence there and Abu Dhabi is the perfect canvas for us to help amplify these voices, but also to foster creative artistic expression. Today, the narrative is shifting. We're no longer seeing the Middle East as an area that is collaborating and kind of helping develop creative, the global economy, the creative global economy, it's actually seen as an area that is helping shape it. And we see we're actually spending a lot of time creating awareness about the different career opportunities that artists can have in the region. I think Gael mentioned some areas, but a lot of graduates from Berkeley end up not only working in the performance area of the music industry, but also in technology, in health and wellness, in law, in education. So we here at Berkeley Abu Dhabi come in with this mindset to help connect sectors, but also help create awareness about the different paths that artists can have in this beautiful field.
There's so much to be said as well for, as you say, it is the perfect crossroads for that. But the tradition of music here is so deep. Yep. And it's influenced global artists the world over. And it's really time for the Middle East to take that and own it, and to really say, the influence is so huge, the connections are incredible, as well as what you're talking about, influencing every possible industry and economy as well. Manuel, if I can come back to you, of course we are living in an age where heritage, you can't just be preserving it, you need to live it, you need to experience it. And so what pioneering approaches then, whether it be in digital, cultural, scientific, is Louvre Abu Dhabi then using to make history feel alive, relevant, and accessible to global audiences?
I will answer right away. I just wanted to bounce back on what something Gail said. On the role of culture for the community and the fabric of the society. And I think this is absolutely key. And that's the bridge between Berkeley Abu Dhabi and Louvre Abu Dhabi. And I think we can at the same time shine in the world, as you say, that on broadcast this very strong capacity of creativity. In our world, we're doing that by attracting 1.4 million visitors last year. But we are also part of the social fabric. And when I think of 70,000 students, school kids coming to the museum every year, this is the other pendant. So one is really, let's say, attractivity, and the other one is really building this resilient society together. Innovation is with this machine, which is receiving visitors, but the core mandate, as you rightfully say, is to preserve the heritage. And I would say the innovation, the first innovation is the building itself. This is not only a prowess of architecture, it's also extremely high-tech building to make sure that despite climate, which sometimes can be challenging, and especially for Louvre Abu Dhabi, we are exactly on the water, so to make sure that despite that, we could have the best visitor experience and to protect the artworks, it required a little bit of science. Yeah. But I would say there is another innovation, which is a conceptual one, which you and I tapped on. The idea of telling art history from a connected point of view is also an innovation that was made here. And then you have, because the museum is a machine to protect artworks, a machine to receive visitors, we're actually creating many tools. So we're in permanence inventing new ways. When you want to welcome visitors from all over the world, you need to find ways to speak all languages. So AI, audio guide, all the things that you have to, there's a limitation to the number of labels and signs that you can put on the walls or around the artwork. One of the solutions is to use AI on tech. This is one of the elements. And if you want to keep on telling stories, if you want to play on the sensorial approach, the sensorial, this is another point we should explore more. We have playlists which are tailored by our team to accompany. You want to learn about the artworks, please do. You want just to enjoy. We propose playlists with Rami, which are a fantastic way to experience the visitor as well, which is another innovative way of giving you the keys to the museum. There is no, who would we be to impose a way of using it? Make your own choice, make your own route.
Yeah, I love that so much. It's amazing. Gail, when we talk about, speaking to the points that we've already started to make a little bit, creative education is something that is really shaping entire ecosystems. And so, including industries that are completely unrelated to the arts. In what ways is Berkeley, in a bit more detail, cultivating that kind of talent, not just to perform, but to innovate as well, turning Abu Dhabi into a regional powerhouse for artistic and cultural influence?
Sure. Well, first of all, I think one of the key characteristics of Berkeley that kind of differentiates it from most other institutions in the world that are dedicated to teaching music is we started with the idea, which at the time was revolutionary and it's still very much part of our DNA, which was teaching music with the music of the day. And that went from being jazz in 1945 to really expanding to a variety of genres, but also areas of study. So we have music business, music production engineering, music for health, scoring for film, television, and video games, music education. I mean, the list goes on and on. And what we've done here is bring a variety of programs that touch upon that. But for us, these first few years have been exploratory in nature to understand where the gap is, where the most need is. But again, we work with communities where they're at, right? So in other words, if a community really has an interest for a particular area. Here, for instance, we found a few interesting things. First and foremost, which might not be surprising for people around the world, but I think for us that live here, we will realize that as an interesting data point is 20% of our students are Emirati. And that's already more than the demographics of the country, right? Another thing that we've discovered is obviously there's a big need for music business education, for managers, for all the, kind of the growth that we're seeing in industry, but also there's been a huge interest for music therapy, right? And for film, for music for film as well. So as we've discovered these interests, we're programming accordingly. I think also another interesting thing to consider is the fact that people see music as, well, again, as a luxury maybe, like as I was saying earlier, or as something that's an accessory, or it's another thing. But if you realize that it actually penetrates technology, it penetrates all these other areas of industry, you kind of start to really see the importance of it. And I think to the point of a lot of the discussions yesterday and today, I think that as we look at the development of a city, the development of buildings, the development of infrastructure, we should definitely really keep in mind the importance of music, creators and creatives as we develop. I've heard several times in the last couple of days, design fit for purpose, right? So we should ask ourselves, what does that mean when it comes down to serving also the communities of creators, right? And I think innovation in that sense happens in a variety of ways. In the way a museum is set up, in the way we design our programs, but also I think in the ways we embrace creators into an integral part of the community.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, Mesa, I'd love to give you the final word on this, because you've done some amazing things here at Berkeley. You've launched powerful initiatives like Pearl and the Fellowship Fund as well. So these programs, how are they not just connecting regional artists to global stages, but also transforming how the world sees creative talent from this part of the world?
Yeah, well, I think what Manuel mentioned earlier is about coming in with a mindset to give a platform for anyone to relate. So for us, this is really the mindset that we have here. There is a place for creatives at all levels to come and contribute and be a part of the programs that we offer, which is very unique to how Berkeley Abu Dhabi is actually developed in this part of the world. So if we had come in with all the knowledge that we had from all over the world and thought that, okay, if we just import it here, it's going to function, it wouldn't have worked. So we've been keeping, our eyes are wide open. We're collaborating with others. We're actually assessing gaps, and this is how we are programming accordingly. The Pearl program is actually a talent accelerator program, and it's an area where we identified that a lot of artists from the region are literally looking and searching for their identity, and also wanting to better understand the business part of it. So this talent accelerator is helping us help them find their voice, to find their narrative, their identity, but also develop original content. And we've had amazing success stories out of this program alone. And the Fellowship Fund fund actually addresses the need for artists to pursue their education further, and that actually allows them to go and pursue their higher education in undergraduate studies and graduate studies at Berkeley in Boston, in New York, in Valencia, or even online, but also with the commitment to come back to the region and help share that knowledge with the artists from the community. So I do believe, I mean, of course, all of our programs have their own value and address specific needs, but these two are actually very transformative experiences, and we look forward to developing more and more kind of original content that is very specific to this part of the world.
It's incredibly exciting. What a journey.
Yeah, I'd love to add a quick thing to that.
Very quickly, yes.
I think that speaks to talent retention.
Yes.
And so,
yes.
you know, that is one of the challenges that we have to address. You know, there's a lot being said about the music industry, just in streaming in this country being around close to $1 billion. And the thing is, though, a lot of that revenue doesn't stay here, and that's largely due to the fact that most of the creators that are part of that content are not in the country. So I think the more we continue to invest, the more we continue to work between institutions and really put creators at the forefront, we're going to be able to also capture some of that value for it to stay in the country. So I think it's really important to, you know, the fellowship is part of it, but in general, realizing that talent needs to be retained, and we need to make sure that the environment is there for them. And it's happening, it's in progress, but I think there's still a lot to do.
And we need to leverage and focus on what makes us so unique. I think this is also something that, I mean, we find ourselves a lot kind of helping those artists look inwards, define their identities, actually lead with it rather than hide it, and make sure that they find actually their purpose, you know, of doing so.
This is the place to do it. Last word, Manuel, very quickly.
No, super quickly. Just, what you said, what you introduced remind me of a beautiful word by Malak. We're in the Temple of Music, why not? And that defines what we do. We are not the custodian of the ash of the past. We are the guardian of the idea of fire. And I think that makes sense.
I love that. What a fantastic way to end it. Thank you so much. We're excited to see the collaborations that happen. We're excited to see where you take this region. You're taking the talent from here to the world and back again. It's absolutely incredible. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking our phenomenal panel. Thank you. What a fantastic way to end the day. Thank you.